Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Butterfly Mansion podcast. This is the official first episode ever, so yay! I'm glad to get this started. I'm your lovely host, Gar Champion. And before we get started, I did want to give a brief introduction of myself, go into my background, credentials, etc. And then also kind of go over how these podcasts are going to go. I technically started off on Twitch making Pokemon content, switched over to YouTube where I tried to do Pokemon content, and then inevitably switched over to anime/Demon Slayer content. As I said previously, I am Guard Champion. I also got into the collectibles game with anime related topics and making videos about them. I still love Demon Slayer, anime, and just collectibles in general, and I still make videos on them to this day. I'm not sure how many platforms that the podcast will eventually go onto, but if you're on something outside YouTube, Guard Champion is my handle. I have been an anime enjoyer for well over 10 years now, and my introduction to anime was actually Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. But what really sunk its hooks into me was Sword Art Online. Judge me if you will, I don't care. But there was one anime that really got its hooks into me and really just made me obsessive over anime. And that was actually Demon Slayer. This is my favorite anime of all time, and it has only grown since making content here on the channel for it. Between breaking down characters and their collectibles, it all just really helped grow my love for the series and certain characters, and specifically Shinobu Kocho. My first big drop was actually trying to get the Shinobu and Obanai pops when they first dropped. If you are unaware, this was actually a very insane drop because both of them never had Funkos previously. And here we are with two brand new Hashiras, and both of them sold out within a minute. I got on right when they dropped. I was met with a bunch of error screens. I was thrown in a queue that said, I was going to be in there for like 15 minutes, panicking, like, oh my gosh, what the heck is going on? To next thing you know, I'm in the checkout screen. I'm able to purchase them. And I'll tell you what, my adrenaline was so high. It was insane. Then I looked online later and saw that so many people did not get these Funkos. And here I am just starting collecting. I got them. And when I got those things in the mail, I saw that Shinobu pop and I was like, oh my gosh, this thing is just beautiful. So it's the experience of getting that first Shinobu pop, reading the manga, hearing her lovely voice actor, Erica Harlocker, in the anime. All that stuff combined just really made me just really love Shinobu as a character. And she's my favorite character of all time. So I only bring up this whole Shinobu thing because she was the logo of my channel for a while. And then this whole podcast being kind of revolved around her, and so to speak, with the Butterfly Mansion. And then if you guys decide to watch the visuals for this podcast, you will see the sitting Shinobu on my mic with the changing lights in the background. So she does have a big part on this channel. And so I just felt the need to share. Now going to the structure of how these podcasts are going to go since this is the first episode. So for every podcast, I'm going to cover a volume of manga. I don't know if the amount of chapters are the same per volume. So the chapters that are covered may be different per episode, but we'll start by going one chapter at a time. I'll go over what's happening, read some dialogue, and then provide additional commentary. If I have any additional thoughts, then I will kind of stop at the end of each chapter and give extra insight before going on to the next one. I will say these first few episodes might suck. This is my first attempt at podcasting. And being a YouTuber who follows a script, I'm going off script. All I have is a piece of paper off to the side of me with bullet points and a guideline, basically, of what to follow. One thing I would also like to add is that most of the time that I'm recording, I'm doing these late at night. And so my voice is almost at 50 to 75% out of respect for my wife and baby who are sleeping directly below me. So I'm not trying to sound boring or monotone. It's just me attempting to be quiet out of respect for my family. Because I will tell you, there is a difference when I get to record during the day versus when I record at night. You can literally look at my best anime dudes of 2025 video and my best anime girls of 2025 video. One was recorded during the day, one was recorded at night. And you listen to the audio, you can clearly tell. So without the groundwork laid out, I will do the intro that I will start with for every other podcast going forward. Welcome to the Butterfly Mansion, a place of healing, training, and is a nice, peaceful place to read some manga. I'm Guard Champion, the podcast Hashru. In this podcast series, I will be breaking down Demon Slayer one book at a time until the series is completed. Things to expect in each episode is a detailed breakdown of each chapter and then some commentary on the subject material. If at any point you enjoy this podcast, feel free to leave a like or subscribe. Okay, so we are starting off with Demon Slayer Kimetsu no Yaiba, Volume 1, and this covers chapters 1 through 7. Kyuharu Gotog. I probably butchered that, so I do apologize. So right when you open the book, you get a message from the author. And here, we just get a bunch of thank yous. So to represent the artist, we get a picture of an alligator with some bent glasses. I know the feeling. And here we just get a very sincere thank you to all the people who helped make this book possible. Chapter 1, Cruelty. First page, we get a picture of a boy holding his sister who has a bloodied head and bloody kimono, insisting that she does not die and that he is going to save her. As we turn the pages, we go back in time and we get the main character's name, Tanjiro. And here we have Tanjiro holding a basket of coal on his back and his face is all dirty. We get his mother insisting that he does not have to go sell coal today because it's going to be a little dangerous. Tanjiro replies by saying he just wants to have a good New Year's feast, so he's going to sell as much charcoal as he can. Before he tries to go, he gets stopped by his little siblings, insisting that they go with him. Their mother jumps in and says that they cannot go. Then we see the girl who is all bloodied up in the first panel, and to find out her name is Nezuko. She gives some context saying that they've been a little bit lonely since their father died, and says goodbye. So within the first 4 pages, we are introduced to the main character, Tanjiro, his 5 siblings. We are informed that their dad has died and that they sell coal for a living. So with me being kind of a city guy, I looked up on Google why you would sell coal in the Taisho era. And here are the results. You would sell charcoals in Japan's Taisho era because it was essential fuel for heating homes, cooking, and industries providing vital, widespread, and profitable trade. But with some further research, it is found that it has other reasons. It would not only fuel the fire for homes, but also for businesses such as tea houses and then inns. They would use it for warmth and then cooking, just like the residential would. Selling charcoal was actually a significant income source. It had industrial and craft use. Charcoal was crucial for traditional iron making and pottery, and then it even had some cultural significance. Not only was it fuel, but it was linked to tradition, nature, and daily rituals. And the funniest part about this whole thing is that when I searched this, it literally brought up Demon Slayer and the Kamado family. So you can thank the Kamados and Demon Slayer for popularizing this whole tradition. As Tanjiro descends the mountain alone, we get some interesting context from him. He talks about how life is not always easy and is always changing like the weather. And then this line, when happiness ends, there's always the smell of blood in the air. Given the context that his dad just recently passed is probably the reason for why he's saying this. Once he gets to the town where he sells the coal, he is greeted by almost everybody, whether it's for buying coal from him or wanting him to do some work. But there are a few panels in here that really show one of Tanjiro's key abilities. Tanjiro's asked to smell a dish that is broken because a kid is being accused of breaking it when he claims he didn't. Tanjiro smells it and he smells a cat. Therefore, the boy is off the hook, implying that the cat broke the dish. Real talk, I can't tell you how many things my cat has actually broken. She's a little turd. After spending the day in the town, it is getting late and dark is approaching. He walks past the house. Tanjiro is then stopped by a gentleman who insists that he stays the night there because he does not want him to run into any demons. He then explains that for ages, that man-eating demons have roamed these woods after dark, and that he should not go out at night. He feeds him, gives him a place to sleep until the morning. And it's through this man's context that we get introduction of the Demon Slayers, because they have cut them down for ages. We finally get this old man's name, and his name is Subaru. And apparently he lives alone because he lost his family. We get this through thoughts of Tanjiro. He also says that his mother said the same thing before she died. And then we get the line, when happiness ends, there's always the smell of blood in the air. Tanjiro gets back in the morning to see his entire family slaughtered. And it's here we actually get the names of all his siblings. We hear Mother, Hanako, Takio, Shigeru, Nezuko, and Rakuda. Now we finally caught up in time. Tanjiro is carrying Nezuko, saying that her body is still warm and that maybe a doctor can save her. Wondering what could have done this. Could it have been a bear? It is snowing. Tanjiro's struggling to breathe, struggling to move. His lungs are freezing, insisting that he will save Nezuko. Nezuko all of a sudden jerks up and starts screaming. This startles Tanjiro, loses his balance, and falls off a cliff and lands on his back in the snow. Okay, so this is kind of interesting. So there's a panel here that shows the top of the cliff where he fell from and then him on the ground. So rough scaling of how many Tanjiros it takes to get to the top of this cliff. I'm going to try to determine how high of a fall he had. It says on the Kimetsu no Yaiba fandom website that Tanjiro is 5'5". So that gives good enough context. And it is about 3 Tanjiros high, so approximately a 15-foot fall, based on this panel. So for a living, I do poured wall basements, and we pour 9-foot tall walls. And I'm the guy who usually does a lot of the work on top of the wall, whether it's scraping, peeling off some ledge that we put in there. And where I'm getting at with this is that I have personally jumped off a 9-foot wall many times, sometimes onto a bank that's, maybe half the height, and then other times just from straight 9 foot up onto the normal ground. The amount of impact from jumping from a 9-foot wall is a lot. It hurts your knees, and it just doesn't feel good. Hence why I don't do it unless I absolutely have to. But here, you add on 6 more feet. And to fall flat on your back, that's going to really knock the wind out of you. And here he is just getting up, like everything's fine. He is then greeted with Nezuko standing up, to then being attacked by her. In the midst of defending himself, he's trying to figure out what's going on. The thought of her being a demon pops in his head and says that no, that's not true. She's been a human since birth. But then he can't help but to smell blood and death from her. He rules out the possibility that Nezuko would never do that to the family. Because when he found her, she was laying over Rakuta like she was trying to protect him. She then starts growing bigger and stronger. So strong that he cannot push her away. Tanjiro begs her to not turn into a demon, calls out to her. Then she starts to cry. And then we get a stranger from the background, ready to attack her. Tanjiro grabs her and then rolls over. The man stands there with the sword and asks, "Why did you protect her?" Tanjiro replies it saying that it's his sister. The man takes her and says that demon killing is his job, so it's his responsibility to take her head. Tanjiro tries to state that she has never killed anyone, and then we get some context on how demons multiply, and that's through blood in their wounds. We get more of Tanjiro trying to beg for him to stop and to let her live. He gets on his knees and begs. We get a very angry Gyu saying, "Never leave yourself so defenseless in front of an enemy." Proceeds to lecture him. This man talks about how he does not respect Tanjiro and why he would even cover his sister. He could have taken both of their heads. He then states, "Why didn't you throw your hatchet?" We then get some important dialogue from this man, in which I will read to you. "Your family is dead, and your sister has become a demon. Your heart is crushed. I know your pain, how you must want to cry it out. If I'd come half a day sooner, your family might have survived. But there is no turning back time. Fill your heart with anger, strong, pure anger, that gives no quarter, angering that becomes the unwavering force that drives your limbs. Weaknesses and empty promises cannot protect your sister or find a cure, and they certainly cannot avenge your family." And then stabs Nezuko with his sword. Tanjiro gets mad, throws a rock, and then charges towards his man. He takes his sword and bashes Tanjiro in the back with the handle, knocking him out. With some context from Gyu, where is his hatchet? All of a sudden, the hatchet flies and just barely misses him. Just before passing the tree, he threw a rock, which distracted him, and then he tossed the hatchet in the air and made it seem like he was armed when he wasn't. His intent was not to kill him then and there because he knew he couldn't overpower him, but to kill him after he was already out. Nezuko breaks away, but instead of eating Tanjiro, she tries to protect him. After some thoughts, Gyu really thinks that these two may be different, and then knocks out Nezuko, who is trying to attack him. We then see Tanjiro's deceased family come to him in his dreams and say that they are sorry that they had to leave him and to take care of Nezuko. He wakes up, Nezuko's there, and then the man approaches. I can finally stop calling him by this man because he then introduces himself as Gyu Tomioka. He says to go see an old man, Sakonji Urokodaki, who lives at the foot of Mount Sagiri, and that Gyu Tomioka sent him, and then warns Tanjiro that he should not let Nezuko in the direct sunlight. Before the journey starts, they bury the deceased family and then runs off. And that ends chapter 1. The first chapters of manga, based on my experience, are usually longer. They're about 50 to 60 pages long. So what did the first chapter of Demon Slayer provide to us? They gave us an introduction to the main character, Tanjiro. They gave Tanjiro a goal and a reason to live, which is to save his sister Nezuko and turn her back into a human. We get a little bit of shock factor with his whole family being slaughtered. We are introduced to the villains of the series, being demons. We learn how they multiply, which is through consuming their blood. We find out that there is a task force, so to speak, to take care of these demons, and that is the Demon Slayers. So I think this is a good start to the series. You get introduced to Tanjiro, you hear his family slaughtered, he is attacked by a Demon Slayer and tries to convince him to let his sister live. He does so and is now given the quest to save his sister. all while knowing the villains and a lot to learn. I think it was a very solid first chapter. Chapter 2, The Stranger. We see Tanjiro trying to buy a basket from some local farmers. They say that it's damaged and that he can just have it, but Tanjiro is not willing to take it for free. He insists on paying them, slaps it in their hand, and runs away. This little slap was actually quite painful. This was during the day, obviously, and he was alone. He left Nezuko in a cave. He comes back to this cave, and Nezuko has dug a hole where she slowly pops her head out. So, bringing back some more work experience, I have experience with kind of digging holes, whether it's for frost protection on our walls, or pads for the support beams of the houses, or post holes. I've dealt with digging in various different types of ground. I've dealt with virgin ground, which is basically ground that has just been untouched. I've dealt with non virgin ground, which is basically dirt that was dug up and then put back. And so the excavator comes out, digs their hole, we put our basement in, they put the dirt back. And so that dirt that has been disturbed and then put back, that dirt's a lot easier to dig in theory, than it is to dig through virgin ground. And then you get the different types of soils. You get sand, you get clay, then you get ground with a mixture of both. Given where Tanjiro bought this basket, it's farmland, so a lot of rototilled topsoil. And he is in a cave. Usually in caves, the ground is hard. You think of mining, and they're using picks and axes. So we're going to compare Nezuko's claws with the picks. So with all the context that we know so far at this point in the story, Nezuko can grow in size and get stronger. Her claws act like picks in the ground. She's very strong and can easily dig a hole. You think of like a dog digging a hole in the ground, except she is doing it in harder soil. And when you dig in harder soil, it is obviously harder and takes more time to accomplish this. In the short amount of time that Tanjiro went to go get a basket, she already dug a hole and was just sitting there chilling. So this all kind of goes into showing Nezuko's strength as a demon compared to a human, even in her weakened state right now, which is essentially starving. Tanjiro fixes the basket, and then she tries to go in it, and only her head and shoulders is able to fit in it. And then he has an idea. If Nezuko can grow in size, can she shrink in size? So he tells her to do that, and then now she fits in the basket. So now we know Nezuko's abilities are growing in size, shrinking in size, and has immense strength. With Nezuko able to fit in this basket, it allows for travel during the day. He gets directions to Mount Sagiri, saying that he has to cross another mountain, but the sun will set soon and that it is dangerous, saying that people have disappeared, so don't get lost. Night falls, they come across a building, and Tanjiro describes it as a way station. There's a light on and indicates that there might be someone there. As they get closer, he smells blood. Given that it's a rigorous mountainous path, he thinks that someone got hurt. They open the door to find 3 dead people and a demon eating their flesh. This demon's all like, oh, this is my territory. And then senses that there's something off about those two, to the point where he asks if they're even human, then tackles Tanjiro. He defends himself with a hatchet and basically says that this is useless. He already stopped the bleeding and is recovering. Now giving context that demons have the ability of regeneration. And during their scuffle, you see Nezuko staring at the blood and the dead bodies that lie in this temple. So before I go any further, for shits and giggles, I kind of looked up way stations during Japan's Taisho era period. And here I was met with some confusion because the actual text that Tanjiro said was way station. And I was kind of confused because it looks like a temple and the demon in there is called the temple demon. And here's what I found in my search. Way stations are referring to a flourishing railway system, showcasing Western influence architecture. Notice anything that is off about this description. If you said railway, that would be correct. 1, there is no railway. 2, this is a mountain, so there's not going to be any trains to begin with. If so, they're going to be at the bottom. So here I think that this was kind of just a mistranslation. My first thought that it could be kind of like a gas station, like a rest area. I think that would be the closest thing I can think of. But the fact that they brought railway system in here really made me think that this was a mistranslation. Again, not necessary. I just thought this was interesting and wanted to include it here in the podcast. And then out of nowhere, we get Nezuko coming by and kicking this demon's head off like a soccer ball. And I wish you guys can see the art of when this is actually happening because Tanjiro's face is hilarious. And then when you see the demon's head bounce off the tree, it has the same expression as Tanjiro and it's hilarious. And here Tanjiro thinks that, oh hey, he's dead. But then his head is still talking. His body attacks Nezuko, and then his head, which was just kicked off by Nezuko, grows arms and hands, and attacks Tanjiro. And in the scuffle, the only way Tanjiro can think of to fight is to headbutt this guy. And then we get some context from the demon that his head is very hard. During the demon's confusion, Tanjiro is able to pin him to the tree with his axe, then runs off to Nezuko. The demon's body is just stomping relentlessly on Nezuko. Tanjiro tackles him off a cliff, but this time Tanjiro doesn't fall because Nezuko saves him. A little bit of funny context here. When the body splats on the ground, it shows a panel of the head screaming in pain. Tanjiro and Nezuko go back to where the head of the main body is and notices that the smell is different than the one that was at his house. He pulls out a knife and says that he has to kill it. He is then stopped by a mysterious man in a weird-looking mask. It says that you cannot kill him with it. And that ends the chapter. Some important takeaways from this chapter. We learned that Nezuko can change in size, not only larger, but smaller. With Nezuko being able to fit into the basket that he fixed, Tanjiro now gains access to traveling with her during the day. We learn that demons cannot die with a beheading or with a regular knife. And then we learn that Tanjiro has a very hard head, as it shows to do some serious damage to even a demon. I actually just recently had a head injury that I'm still kind of going through right now. I was roughhousing with the dog playing tug of war, and then she went to shake and headbutted me right in the eye socket. She hit me so hard that my glasses flew off, and from my thoughts, it seemed like she was worried that she hurt me, and I was not upset even though I got my glasses knocked off. But I was worried about her because that was a hard blow. She's sitting there loving me up, I'm giving her love, and everything's fine. Next day I wake up with a nice headache. I didn't think too much of it. It was kind of annoying, but I was just like, whatever. Heading to work, and all of a sudden, it just intensifies and gets dramatically worse. Then I remembered that the dog and I collided heads. I went to touch where I got hit, and that just immediately hurt and made it worse. I'm like, oh my gosh, what the heck is going on here? And so my job is very labor intensive. I carry forms all day that weigh 115 pounds. I'm digging, pulling concrete, whatever the daily requires me to do. And just a simple act of me bending over, even something as simple as me just trying to exert myself to pick up our normal forms or do what I normally do at work, it was causing me so much pain in my head that it was just unbearable. I really should have gone to the doctor. That's what I really should have done. And after my experiences at work, I was pretty convinced that I had a concussion. So I tried my best to take it easy. I sat down when I needed to. It was a rough day. It was a very rough day. I get home, take care of the wife, baby, and I just go immediately to bed after. Try to get as much sleep as I can. Next day, it's a little better, but it's the same thing. I couldn't exert myself, do anything physical. It was rough. And that was 2 days straight of that crap. So with the timing of these events, I only worked 2 days and then Christmas break. The additional couple days of rest helped, but it still is kind of lingering. Concussions are no joke. This is like my first time ever having one. And I can only imagine being intentionally headbutted by Tanjiro. Like, oh, I'd be out for a week. So just know his headbutts are very strong. And if you if you were to get headbutted by him in real life, you'd probably be knocked out and left with a concussion like I was. Am I implying that my dog has a very hard head? Who knows? I have a very hard head myself, but that's also stubbornness. And then lastly, before we go on to chapter 3, so I wanted to see how far it was between Mount Kunatori and Mount Sagiri. Only answer that I could get was that they were adjacent mountain regions. Do I know what that means? Absolutely not. So I was going to use the amount of time that Tanjiro and Nezuko traveled to help calculate a distance from when they left home to when they got to Mount Sagiri. It's hard to actually classify how long it took them to get from their home to the way station, as Tanjiro claims, because we don't have any text of how long it took them to get to when they got the basket. It could have been by the next day when the sun came up, or they could have been traveling at night only. It was never directly stated. So it could have taken 1 day to get to where they are, or it could have taken 3, just to throw a number out there. So the actual distance between Mount Sagiri and Kunatori will just have to be left to adjacent mountain regions, unfortunately. Chapter 3, Return by Dawn. It starts off with a talking crow going to the guy in the mask, calling him Lord Sakonji Uragadaki. This crow is here to deliver a letter from Giyu Tomioka, basically saying that a demon slaughtered Tanjiro's family. He had the courage to fight Giyu unarmed. He wants to become a demon slayer, and that his sister is a demon that chooses to not attack humans, and that he senses something different in these two. He says that Tanjiro has a strong sense of smell, just like Uragadaki does, and that he believes that he could be worthy of carrying on his traditions. We jump back to real time, and Tanjiro asks how can he finish it off. We get Sakonji Urikadaki kind of being a dick and being cold to him, not answering his question. We get some hesitation from Tanjiro, leading Urikadaki to think that his kindness is his biggest weakness and that he even shows sympathy for demons, and says that this boy is useless. All of a sudden, the sun rises, hits the demon, and dissolves. By the time Tanjiro realizes what's going on, Urikadaki has already buried the deceased. He introduces himself to Tanjiro and says that he must be the one that Kyu told him about, and then is pressed with the hard question, what will you do when your sister eats someone? He doesn't respond right away and slaps Tanjiro. You think too slow. You struggle over the simplest decisions. You could never finish off a demon before the light. Why couldn't you answer that question immediately? You are far too soft. When your sister eats someone, there are two things you must do. You must kill your sister and then slit your own belly and die. That's what it means to travel with your sister who has just become a demon. But it is your sacred duty to ensure that this never happens. Your sister must never take a life of an innocent person. Tanjiro answers quickly and says yes. Urikadaki will test him to see if he has what it takes to be a member of the Demon Slayer Corps, and then states to follow him. Tanjiro is struggling to even keep up with him. With having sympathy for Nezuko bouncing around in the basket, he realizes that suffering is all Nezuko has ever known. We then get a flashback of an interaction with him and Nezuko. Tanjiro notices Nezuko's worn kimono and asks if she is ever going to get a new one. She responds by saying that she would rather use the money to feed the children. With this thought, he insists that he's going to buy Nezuko a nice kimono when he turns her back to human again. They make it to Urikadaki's place and says that the real test is about to begin. And at this point, Tanjiro is completely gassed. Urikadaki states that he must descend to the house at the foot of the mountain, and he has to do it before sunrise. Tanjiro thinks this will be easy, but then hits a tripwire and has rocks thrown at him. Next thing you know, he falls into a covered pit, and then more traps. He gets hit in the back with a log, only to realize that this entire mountain is booby-trapped. He tries to use his sense of smell to smell the traps, but it does not grant him the ability to evade them all. Meanwhile, Nezuko is sleeping in Urikadaki's place as he is shown covering her up with a blanket. The door bursts open with a beat-up and dirty Tanjiro, made it back in time, and says, Tanjiro Kamado, I accept you as my student. So some key points from Chapter 3. Urikadaki is literally able to smell the emotions that people are going through. It's one thing to see how someone's feeling through their body language, but to be able to smell it, that is just insane. We see him being extremely hard on Tanjiro, especially at the temple, but this is just so that way he knows that the stakes are high with traveling with the demon. And then we get our first Taisho Whispers and Rumors panel. Here we have the Other Gatoge, represented with the alligator with the crooked glasses. This was a very fun page because you get to see some of the titles that were under consideration for the name of this series. Mysterious Story of the Demon Slayer. Demon Slayer's Lair. Interesting. Evil Demon Slayer. Sword of the Demon Killer. Strange Tale of the Demon Slayer. Tale of the Demon Killer. The Fantastic Strange Tale of the Demon Slayer. Demon Hunting God of Fire. Charred God of Fire. Some of those are interesting. Demon Slayer is definitely more catchy. And I'm definitely glad that they went with Demon Slayer because some of these other ones are definitely not as good. Charred God of Fire. That anime would not have lasted 3 episodes. Chapter 4. Tanjiro's Journal, Part 1. There's a lot of information here in the next 2.5 pages, so I'm just going to read it directly from the manga. There are a few hundred members of the Demon Slayer Corps. The organization isn't officially recognized by the government, but it has existed since days of old and still hunts demons today. However, the identity of the leader of the Demon Slayer Corps is shrouded in mystery. Demons, food staple, humans. They kill humans and eat them. They have impressive physical abilities and their wounds heal quickly. They can reconnect severed flesh and grow new limbs. Some demons can change form, others possess strange powers. It is unclear when they first appeared. The only ways to kill them are by exposing them to sunlight or by cutting off their heads with a special sword. The Demon Slayer Corps fights demons face to face. They are human, so their wounds heal slowly and lost limbs do not return. Nonetheless, they fight demons in order to protect ordinary people. This was really important because, one, we get more info on what a demon actually is, what their abilities are, and that they can vary from demon to demon. We get some insight on the Demon Slayer Corps as well. There are only a few hundred members in the Corps. They are not recognized by the government. This kind of issue will come up in future chapters. And then they state that the leader of the Demon Slayer Corps is a mystery. Another interesting thing is that the page shows Giyu Tomioka to show the viewers that he is a member of the Demon Slayer Corps, because he is. We see two people who are kind of just generalized. We see a person looking back with bandages over his mouth. If you know who that is, kudos. Then it shows a girl with a butterfly hairpin. I wonder who that could be. And then the last picture shows a man in a white cape who is bald. This bald guy is going to lead me on a mini tangent here. I saw a video recently saying that this bald guy is a Hashira. Odds are you've probably seen the series and already know who the Hashira are, and that there's no bald guy among the Hashiras. There was a video that speculated that he was a Hashira and ran through the Hashiras and claimed that one of them is wearing a wig. And I gotta say, that is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. And that AI is stupid, and don't watch those AI channels, please. Watch ones that are written and voiced by real people like me. I just cannot get over how stupid of a theory that was, saying that Sonomy is bald. No. If anything, I feel like this is just spreading misinformation, and I personally don't like that. I'm not really a fan of that. They were literally just doing it for views. Urokodaki states that he is a trainer, and in order to join the Demon Slayer Corps, you must survive the final selection at Mount Fujikasane, and that he decides whether or not he will attempt the final selection. Training commences, and we get some insight from Tanjiro that he is starting a journal. He goes down the mountain day after day, and he's gotten quite good at avoiding traps. He's growing stronger. His nose is even getting stronger at picking up scents. But as his skill increases, so do the traps. He feels that Urokodaki is really trying to kill him. Then he starts going down the mountain with a katana, and it starts getting in his way and throwing off his rhythm. Training starts with being able to swing the sword. He swings the sword so much that he feels like his arms are going to fall off. One of the first things he was taught about the katana is that they break easily. It's strong against a force lengthwise, but weak against a force from the side. And you must attack straight ahead when you swing a katana. And then threatens Tanjiro that if he damages the sword, that he will damage him. Some of the training included Urokodaki knocking him down and then having to get up quickly. Training also included Tanjiro going at him with a sword and Urokodaki unarmed. He states that he is ridiculously strong and always throws him to the ground. He then taught him some breathing forms. He's been doing this for 6 months straight, and Nezuko is still asleep. He even had doctors come to look at her, and nothing is wrong. Another 6 months pass by, and Urokodaki says that he has nothing more to teach Tanjiro. He says that the rest is up to him, and he's going to have to use everything he taught him in order to split this boulder. If he does, he will allow him to go to the final selection. And after that day, Urokodaki has taught him nothing. Day in and day out, he practiced everything Urokodaki taught him with no success. All of a sudden, he is then shouted at, saying, "A man shouldn't whine. It is unseemly." This character is wearing a mask as well. He also states, "Whatever the suffering, bear it in silence, if you're a man, or are you still a little boy?" And then attacks Tanjiro. Tanjiro defends, and his character states that he is slow, weak, and immature, and that he will never become a demon slayer. A key thing to note here as well is that Tanjiro actually stated that he could not smell him. Chapter 5, Tanjiro's Journal, Part 2. Tanjiro confused, asking where he came from. "And what are you doing?" The man in the fox mask replies, "I am training. And how long do you plan to have your butt stuck in the mud? Take a stance." And stomps his feet. "Now attack." Tanjiro states, "But you have a wooden sword, and I have a real one." He bursts out with laughter. He goes on the offensive and in Tanjiro's face, "You can't hurt me. I'm stronger than you will ever be. And I've already split the boulder. You've gained nothing. You haven't mastered anything. Certainly not the breathing technique taught by Urokodaki. Total concentration breathing. You've memorized it as a fact, but your body does not understand anything. Beat it into your flesh and blood so that you become the embodiment of the secrets Urokodaki taught you. Beat it into the marrow of your bones. Don't just try, do it. The only other choice is to lie down and die. Make yourself progress. Attack me with what you got. Show me your strength." Some very fun dialogue from the foxed masked man. He strikes Tanjiro with an uppercut, and he is passed out. The fox masked man. I don't know why I cannot say that. The foxed masked man They just need to get to his name already. He says that he will leave the rest to you, to the female character, off to the side. Tanjiro wakes up with the girl sitting next to him, and he asks what happened. Instead of being upset with his loss and being knocked out, he was actually impressed with the lack of unnecessary motion and how that it was an incredible blow. This girl agrees to help him, and her name is Makamo. And the fox-masked man, thank God that's the last time I had to say that, his name is Sabito. I will say, guys, sometimes I do struggle to say certain things. I blame a speech impediment that is unknown and undiagnosed, but I just kind of struggle to say things. So sorry in advance. Makamo takes the time to point out the defects in Tanjiro's style, and then she corrects any unnecessary movements and bad habits. Tanjiro wonders why that she's doing this for him, and her reply is always that they just really like Urokodaki. Turns out that Sabito and Makamo are not siblings, but they were both orphans taken in by Urokodaki, and he raised them. Makamo states that there are other children too, and they are all around watching. And here we get some context about total concentration breathing. Total concentration breathing accelerates your blood flow and heartbeat, and your temperature shoots up. You're still human, but you get strong like a demon. You expand your lungs and bring in lots of air into your blood. Your blood gets excited and your bones and muscle thrill. You get hot and strong. She also states you must train so hard that you could die. After all this immense training, Tanjiro still cannot defeat Sabito. Another 6 months have passed, and then when he went to face Sabito one day, he held a real sword. Side note with the addition of this 6-month context, it is now a year and a half into his journey. Sabito recognizes that he finally has the face of a man, and Tanjiro replies, "Today, I will win." It was a simple contest. The stronger, faster blade will win. The fight was over in an instant. In that day, in that moment, for the first time, my blade reached Sabito first. And for the first time, we get to see Sabito's face without the mask. When he won, Sabito smiled, and it seemed like a sad smile to Tanjiro, but also reassuring. With some final words from Makamo, "Win, Tanjiro." Against them too, suddenly Sabito disappeared. And then in front of Tanjiro, the boulder was split, and no one was there. That concludes chapter 5, but we get a page titled Words of Gratitude from the author. I will forever butcher this name, but Gotoj. I'm just going to refer to the author's name as the author, just so it flows better and I'm not taking 1,000 takes. Anyways, the author is very thankful for all the support, and there's an interesting dialogue here. They say, unlike water and food, manga isn't absolutely necessary for survival. Getting you to buy it is a tough job, and thank you very much. So in reality, it's just nice to see a personal touch from the author, not just in here to take your money. They are very grateful that you are reading this manga, just like I am very grateful that you guys are listening to this podcast right now. Chapter 6, A Mountain of Hands. We get an image of Urokodaki and then the following text in various bubbles. A demon's weak point is its neck. However, when using a normal blade, even cutting its neck won't kill it. The swords that the Demon Slayer Corps use are made from a special steel. We call them Nichiren swords. So that gives us a little bit more context on why Tanjiro's standard blade could not kill the temple demon. We also get some thought bubbles from Tanjiro, stating that with his training with Makamo, he's learned to smell the opening thread, and that's how he won against Sabito. When he's fighting someone and he finds that scent, he can see a thread. He's essentially guided by the thread, and his blade cuts into that spot. Back to real time. Urokodaki states that he did not intend to send Tanjiro to the final selection. He did not wish to see another child die. He really did not think that he could split that boulder, but praises him and says that he did well and that he is an amazing child. An emotional moment leads to them hugging, and Urokodaki stating, "Be sure to return alive. Your sister and I will be here waiting." After a year and a half of not cutting his hair, Tanjiro finally does it. Urokodaki gives him something called a warding mask, and apparently it offers protection from evil. He can't take Nezuko with him because she's still asleep, so he's leaving her in Urokodaki's care. There's a couple things I want to touch on before we go on, and it's the fact that Nezuko has been sleeping now for a year and a half straight. That is quite the nap, if I say so myself. As Tanjiro leaves, he says something weird to Urokodaki. He says, "Give my best to Sabito and Makamo." And Urokodaki whispers to himself, "Tanjiro, how is that you know the names of the deceased children?" So Tanjiro was training with ghosts for the past 6 months. Mount Fujikasane, the site of the final selection. Tanjiro walks up the steps and notices a bunch of wisteria and kind of questions it because it should not be blooming this time of year, apparently. Makes his way to the courtyard where there is a bunch of people and a couple panels showing a few specific characters. Pop quiz time. Based off my descriptions, let's see if you can guess who these characters are. We have a young boy with a scar going across his face horizontally. So from like his cheek all the way to the other side of his face. This person also has a mohawk. Person number 2, they have yellow hair, a yellow haori with triangles on it. And this next one is a girl with kind of a blank stare with black hair. We are greeted by what looks like a set of twins, one with black hair, one with white hair. They greet everybody and explain what is going on with the final selection. They say that there are demons lurking in this mountain and that they have been captured by the demon slayers and taken here. The mountain is also covered in wisteria, which demons do not like. So it is up to anyone attempting this challenge to survive a week. If they do, then they have passed the final selection. Now they are on their way. Right off the bat, Tanjiro encounters 2 demons, both in which Tanjiro eliminates immediately with 4th form Striking Tide, where he was able to smell the threat. This makes Tanjiro happy because he believes that he actually has gotten stronger and that his training worked and that he can do this. Before the 2 demons fade away, Tanjiro says a prayer, saying to rest in peace. All of a sudden, Tanjiro smells a very rotten smell, followed with a boy screaming that there is a huge deformed demon back there. He's never seen anything like it. Enter this very hideous demon with a bunch of hands. He launches an attack on the person who screamed for help. As his boy is being taken away by this demon's hands, Tanjiro reacts with water-breathing 2nd form, Water Wheel. He cuts the arm and saves him. This excites him because he sees Tanjiro's Fox Max. I did forget to mention that Tanjiro is wearing a blue Haori with cloud patterns. We get some additional content here with Taisho whispers and rumors. And we get the author saying that he heard that one of the 2 final selection guides is a boy. Another pop quiz time for you guys. There's a white-haired guide and there is a black-haired guide. Which one is the male? I will not answer this because it is actually a very crucial part later in the story. So when I get to that point, just make sure you remember this question. All right, so there's a couple things I did want to bring up before we go on to the next chapter. Tanjiro gains the ability to see what's called the opening thread, where he sees a line from the tip of his blade to the weak spot of his opponent, in which if he follows this path, it will lead him to victory. Another interesting call out here I wanted to bring up, Sabito and Makamo were spirits, so to speak. Then how was Tanjiro able to take physical damage? Like being knocked out when he was first introduced to Sabito, for example. Sparring, even. Unlike the age-old question of how many licks is it going to take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop, this one will probably never be answered. Chapter 7, Spirits of the Deceased. We get a cutscene of Makamo and Sabito back in the forest, where Sabito is sitting on the sliced boulder. Makamo asking, do you think that Tanjiro can really do this? But states that no amount of effort is too much. Cuts back to real time with this random question from the hand demon. He asks what Meiji Emperor sits on the throne. And Tanjiro replies that the imperial family is Taisho. In complete disbelief, we see this demon get upset because he's been here for so long, and that dynasties have really risen and fallen. He starts blaming Urokodaki, saying that he was the one who captured him and brought him here, and that it has been 47 torturous years, back when he was a demon slayer in the Edo period, the Kaio era. The kid that Tanjiro saved screams that you're lying. No demon has been here that long. They've only put demons in here that have only eaten 2 or 3 people, and that they get killed during the selection. The hand demon replies that he has eaten 50 of you brats, indicating that he is way stronger than the normal demon, indicating that he is 25 times stronger. This triggers a flashback from Tanjiro. Remember something that Urokodaki said, that a demon's strength comes from the number of people that it has consumed, indicating that the more people they eat, they grow stronger, they've changed physically, and gain unnatural powers. And says that if your nose gets stronger, you will be able to tell how many people a demon has eaten. Back in real time, the hand demon says that he is number 14. Tanjiro confused and asks, what are you talking about? The hand demon replies, that's how many of Urokodaki's students that I have eaten, kind of giggling, and I decided to kill all of his students. The hand demon starts reminiscing and says that there are 2 that he will never forget. One had a colorful Haori jacket and was the strongest by far. He had peach-colored hair and a scar by his mouth. The other one was a girl whose komodo was covered in flowers. She was small and not so strong, but she was very agile. These 2 were Sabito and Makamo. The hand demon states that he specifically chose them because he knew that they were Urokodaki students and that he targeted them specifically. He then starts stating how he killed Makamo, and this enrages Tanjiro. going on the offensive. We get Sabito telling Tanjiro to stay calm. Your breathing is uneven. Do not worry about us and focus on what you must do. As Tanjiro gets punches in the side and launched into a tree. The person that Tanjiro saved, instead of trying to help him, he decides to flee. Tanjiro is knocked out. We get a panel with one of Tanjiro's siblings saying, "Wake up, brother." And based off the panels when he was listing all of his siblings that were dead, this is Shikaru. Tanjiro wakes up and defends himself. No matter how many of these hands that Tanjiro cuts off, they just keep regenerating. And then all of a sudden, Tanjiro gets a smell from the ground. He jumps up, and next thing you know, there was an attack from the ground. And then this surprised him, and then attacks him mid-air. Tanjiro then uses his head to headbutt the hand mid-air and deflect the attack, launching him head-on towards the hand demon. This leaves him trembling because he's out of hands and he cannot grow more in time, and that the fox brat is in striking range. He also states that his neck is so hard that even the peach-haired brat, Tanjiro uses water-breathing first form. Water surface slash. We get some conversation between Sabito and Makomo again, questioning whether or not Tanjiro can defeat this hand demon because his neck was so hard. Sabito being kind of vague on whether he may lose or win, but there's one thing for certain, that the boulder that Tanjiro cut was bigger and harder than anyone had ever cut before. That is the end of the chapter and the end of Volume 1. So we are left on a cliffhanger, not knowing whether or not Tanjiro actually defeated this hand demon. For those watching this podcast, you most likely know what already happened, have seen the series all the way up to where the anime ends, which was the Infinity Castle movie, or you could have read the entire manga. But for those who haven't, you are left with a cliffhanger. Some things I did want to note here is the importance of Sabito's text at the very end. Boulder that Tanjiro was tasked to cut was harder and larger than any other boulder that had to get cut down. Truly putting some meaning to Urukadaki's intent of not wanting to send anyone else to the final selection. Another cool thing that we have seen now is that Tanjiro has the ability to not only smell the opening thread, which guides him to kill a demon, but also he can smell where attacks are coming from. That is all I wanted to talk about for Chapter 7. I also just want to thank everybody who listened to this first episode. It's probably not the greatest. I'm still trying to figure things out. So all I ask is just for a little bit of patience as I work to perfect this style of podcasting. So with that said, again, I do appreciate all of you who have listened, and I hope you enjoyed this podcast. Feel free to like, subscribe, comment, whatever you do on whatever platform this goes up on. And I will see you guys on the next one where we cover Volume 2 of Demon Slayer.